Let me give a brief summary of what we've learned so far. Reb Tzadok HaKohen brilliantly takes the Gemara of Shalosh Mishmaros Heve Halayla. And there, the Gemara at the beginning of Brachos tells us, as you know, as you remember, that there are three mishmaros, three changings of the guard in the Shemayim, and so too, Keneged there are three changings of the guard in the Aretz, and Malchusa de Rekia ke Malchusa de Ara, or Malchusa de Ara ke Malchusa de Rekia. What's going on upstairs in the Shemayim is going on right here in our world. There are simanim, the Gemara tells us, to how do we know which guard we're in. And in the first one, Chamor Noyer, you will hear the noise of donkeys. In the second, Klovim Soakim, dogs are barking. And in the third, the Gemara tells us that's when Tinoik Yoinek, Isha Misaperes Imbala, that's when you'll find the baby getting up to eat, to nurse, and the wife discussing things with her husband. We've talked about the spiritual aspect of this, and this works so far according to Tzadok in two levels, or three really. One level is, of course, the night, Shalosh Mishmaros Heve Halayla. That's what goes on all night long. And I guess if you're living in a more agricultural society, you will hear the donkeys and you will hear the dogs barking. Tzadok first told us, and I just want to review this briefly, that the Laila also refers to all the years of Golus. So meaning if you'll take the years of Golus from the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash until the time of the Geula, let's call it 2,000 years, and you'll divide it into three, you'll see these three mishmaros. And I pointed out that the first mishmar was the time when, after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, when we were still in Eretz Yisrael, and we still had Tanoim like Rabbi Akiva, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, like Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. And we were there in Eretz Yisrael until the Muslim takeover in 666, which was approximately the end of the first third. And at that time, the Svarim explained that we still had the energy of the time of Yerushalayim. We still had the energy of the Beis HaMikdash. The Dome of the Rock was built in 1666. And that entered into our second period of Golus. And the third period of Golus started, the Baal Shem Tov says in one of his letters that the Arizal was born at the beginning of the third Mishmar. And what that means is that when the Arizal was born, that opened up a whole new way of learning, a whole new way of relating to mitzvahs, of relating to Torah, of really davening and relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we're towards the end of that now. We're at the time of Mashiach. And we explained in that scenario how the three simanim work. And then we talked about a person's own life. The own life is divided into three. And the first third, Chamor Noar. Chamor Noar means that Chamor, Reb Tzadok tells us, is the lashon of like Gashmias, Chomer. And that's where we are at the beginning of our life. The first third of our life is the acquisition stage. Just got to get money, got to get a house, got to get a job, got to get a business, got to get a wife, got to get a husband. I got to get. Like that's the Chamor Noar, and that's okay. That's where it is. And the second part of the night, or of our life, is the Klovim Soakim, which sound not as bad as it sounds. I explained last week that was the idea of the dogs barking. Reb Tzadok says the idea of tefillah. Dogs barking, we find Kani Kalbin the Chatzifin, we find Klovim Tsayakim, we find Yeshayahu who speaks about the Klovim Tsayakim. And that refers, of course, to a certain type of a tefillah, which is still very attached to us ourselves. The Balatanya calls it the Nefesh HaBahamis, or the Klipa. But here we go today with the third Mishmar. And the third Mishmar is Tinoik Yoinek. And here, read from Reb Tzadok. Shlishi, the third part of our life, the third part of Golus, third part of our life. Tinok yoinek. The baby nurses. Hainu Torah. Just want to point out, obviously, the word tinok, which means a baby, and the word yonek are nursing or sucking in the milk of its mother. So, of course, that's a related word. It's called a tinok over the fact that he is yonek. And says Reb Tzadok, what this is referring to is Hainu Torah. It's referring to Torah. How do I know? He says that this is referring to Torah, meaning the third trimester of life, or the third trimester. Let's talk about Gullus. Let's go back to that idea. The third trimester of history of Gullus is Tinok Yonek Hainu Torah. It's a time of Torah. You would have thought that the first trimester would have been the time of Torah, but he'll explain. How do I know it's a time of Torah? K'maisha Amru B'Perek Arvei Psachim, because it says in Arvei Psachim, Lashon is Psachim Kuf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, Mima she'egel roitze limnoik, she'Torah nimshala l'chalav. We're all familiar with this term and with this idea that the Chazal say that more than a calf wants to eat from its mother, more than he wants to nurse from his mother, the para, his mother, wants to feed the calf. And this is usually used to explain somebody gets the itch for teaching, so maybe you want to teach more than your students want to learn. Or if you're carrying some type of a message, maybe you want to give over that message even more than anybody wants to hear it. But I want to just stop with you for a minute and take a look in the Gemara. What the context of that statement. This is actually a statement to Rabbi Akiva. And there, the Gemara tells a story that Rabbi Akiva was bebeis ha'asurim. He was in jail. He was in jail, imprisoned by the Romans for teaching Torah, as we all know. And somehow or another, his student, one of his star pupils, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who we know so well, came to visit him in jail. So Reb Shimon Bar Yochai comes to visit Rabbi Akiva in jail, and he says to him, Rebbe, lamdeni Torah, teach me some Torah. Surprisingly, Rabbi Akiva says, no, look, I don't want to teach you Torah. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, well, if you're not going to teach me Torah, I'll tell Yochai Avi to send you to the Malchus. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, we talk a lot about Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, we don't talk a lot about Yochai. He was apparently a Roman informer, believe it or not. And Reb Shimon Bar Yochai threatened his Rebbe. Rabbi Akiva says, if you're not going to teach me Torah, I'll tell my father to report you to the Malchus Romi. Well, he was already in jail, but the Malchus Romi, meaning the larger Roman Empire, were the ones that were sentenced him to death. Like a crazy story. And Rabbi Akiva went on to explain to him that, listen, he says, Yoser mimasha egel roitze lenek para roitze lahanik. And that's the context of this, that Rabbi Akiva explained to his Talmud, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that even more than the egel wants to nurse, the para wants to give. Even more than you want to learn, I want to teach you. Okay, so why doesn't he teach him? And the answer, just while we're in the Gemara, the simple answer is that if Rabbi Akiva would be teaching Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Torah, he would be endangering Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and that's why he refused to teach him Torah. Reb Tzadok learns from this that the Torah, Rabbi Akiva, in his brilliant, holy wisdom, referred to Torah, his mashal for Torah was chalav, milk. And from here we see that Torah is like milk. Let's understand what was happening in this Gemara, what was happening in this story, what was happening in this period of history. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, Rabbi Akiva, you taught us everything. Kulam aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Everything was according to Rabbi Akiva, all the Torah of the generations and all the generations to come. Torah of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the Torah of the Zayar, everything was Rabbi Akiva. Teach me Torah. And Rabbi Akiva apparently responded that no, the period is over. That period has ended. We'll go on to other periods, but the period has ended. Believe me, the more than you want to learn Torah, I want to teach you Torah. Remember what we're talking about? We're talking about the end of the first Mishmar, almost getting ready for the second Mishmar, where it was the end of Eretz Yisrael and going into Gullus, a real bad Gullus. The second period of the Laila. And here, Rabbi Akiva says that there's no chalav to teach you. In other words, not that I don't want to teach you Torah. It stopped in Shemayim. The era, the period, has ended. Shimon Bar Yochai went his way. Rabbi Akiva was eventually killed by the Romans. We all know the story. So, when we talk about chalav is Torah. Tinoik yonek. There's a period of going into the third era, the third period, that's the period that we're in, the Mishmar Hashlishi, where once again the baby wakes up and says Tinoik yonek. But this is not the period of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai wanting to learn from Rabbi Akiva. This is our time right now. The idea of chalav, let's just try to explain this for a moment. Ad makom shiadenu magas, as much as we're able. Chalav is, its scientific property is blood. The Gemara has all kinds of questions of why is chalav even mutter to drink. So maybe it's dam, maybe it's ever min achai. What is chalav? But it's something that is produced by the mother, and a transformation takes place from part of the mother going to the next generation, to the child. It's actually an amazing thing. If anybody has been zocheh to see the miracle of a baby being born, the second it's born, it knows how and it's ready to eat from its mother, to nurse from its mother, and to get all of that nutrition and even antibiotic and all the stuff that the baby needs for life, that nursing. This is the Tinuk Yonik. This refers to a time when something is transforming from one thing, which is in the mother, to something else which is suitable for the next generation, yeah? Reb Tzadok in Dover Tzedek, Parches, that's where he's kind of Meirich in this whole idea of the Shalosh Mishmaros. He tells us that it's a time of Bina. I have the Lashon here. Hargashas Tam, he's talking about by nursing. Hargashas Tam, Urakish Madregas Cholov Hayoitze Midadim Shibamakim Bina. And he's Meirich on the fact that this isn't Dover Tzedek in the Ner Mitzvah, that what we're talking about here is a time of Bina. Let's understand Bina, because this is going to be helpful to us. Bina is when Chachma is processed into something that is edible, that is usable, that is digestible, when a Chachma is information. So the Chachma comes from the Torah, and then it goes through a level of Bina. And then from the Bina, it can go to the next stage. So Chalav really is a mashal to Torah, because that's exactly what's happening. Something very, very spiritual came from the Shemayim at Har Sinai, through the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu. It goes through a makom of Bina, which is a transformation from Ruchnius to a place which is touch and feel, all the way Lamaisa to the place of mitzvahs, to the place of chesed. It comes down Lamaisa's Mishtel Shel Lamata, and that really is the time of Bina. And on this, Reb Tzadok tells us this is the time of the beginning of the third Mishmar. According to my reckoning, comes out to something like the year 1300 is when it starts. It goes, I think, depending on how you count, of course, the 2,000 years, it goes right, in fact, like the Baal Shem Tov says, to the time of the Arizal, and brings us to our time. I want to explain Bina for a moment. Bina, the Gra explains the pasuk Eim Habanim Smecha. In Kabbalah, there are partsufim, and one of the partsufim is partsuf Ima. So there's the partsuf of Abba and the partsuf of Ima. The partsuf of Abba is just like the biological model, where the Abba is giving forth a seed. That takes a very short time, but the mother is processing Bina. Eim Habanim Smecha. Banim is a lashon of binyan, a lashon of ben, a lashon of extension and processing. This is what's happening in the biological model. The mother's working a lot harder to create this child than the father worked, l'chayra. So this is the partsuf of Ima of Eim Habanim Smecha. This quote you the lashon of the Vilna Gaon. V'hainu shekemoisha ein doyeges lebaneha sheikablu is kol hanitzrach lahem. It's the mother's job, or just nature, to make sure that the child has everything that they need. Kach gam ken hanagas bina inyana lahavias kol ha'olam latikun hasholem. The point of bina, when we talk about bina, we're talking about bringing the whole world to the tikkun hasholem shakol yagia latikun v'lo yidach mimenu nidach, that the whole world will be fixed. The whole world will come to a place of tikkun. Isn't that what we're talking about? So the third mishmar, as the Gemara calls it, lifnois biker, before the sun rises and before the geula happens, is the zman of bina, where things are coming into this world in a way that are going to be tangible and edible, nutritionable for the generation. Another point Rav Tzadok makes about Tinok Yoinek is that in the case of Tinok Yoinek, it's the Tinok, it's the Tinok wanting to eat and stimulating, if you will, the mother, which is actually causing the chalav to happen. You see, this is the difference. In the time of Rabbi Akiva, where there was a flow of Torah, kind of downward, if you will, into this world. So that was Tkufa Aleph. Tkufa Gimel, the one that I believe we're in now, is a different thing. That from here, from in this world, we're stimulating the chalav of the aim to come down into this world, something different. So let's call it the trimester of searching. The trimester of understanding or wanting to understand or needing to understand the side. The time that we're living in now, people are searching. They're not always finding the right things. People are finding all kinds of different practices, ranging from Avodah Zarah to atheism, but they're searching. And we need to daven that the generation should search and find emes in Hashem, emes in Torah. But it's a bechina of aim. Aim habanim smecha then becomes a bechina of geula lifnoi spiker. I want to quote you just the pasuk. It just came to my mind that in the Sefer of Yoel. So Yoel HaNavi is a short nevuah but a powerful one. He talks about the geula and he says, "V'haya b'yoyim hahu yitfu haharim asis." The mountains will have a downflow of wine. In other words, it'll be so lush that the wine will come into this world. V'hagvais, in the hills, telachna chalav, will flow with milk. V'chol afike Yehuda yelchu mayim. And the fast waters of the Midbar Yehuda will all be full with water. You know, like here in Eretz Yisrael, we're zocheh to see sometimes up close where the desert can be so dry, and then all of a sudden it will rain, and water becomes like water on a blech, on a hot blech. It just all doesn't know where to go. It can't even absorb. It all goes to one place, and there's a flood there. And all the animals know about this. It might be a little dangerous for us, but it's such a simcha for the animals, because the animals all run there to drink. Ka'ayel tarag alafike mayim. That's the fast waters. Ka'afikim ba'negev, as we say in Shir Hamalas. So the Geula is spoken about by the Navi as a time of flowing water, which of course is Torah, flowing wine, and flowing milk. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu called this an Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. Zavas Cholav. And the spiritual part of that is it refers to Torah. But there's a difference between the Yayin and the Mayim, because the Cholav is a transformation. It's not something that exists, first of all. Second of all, more important than that, more important than the bina of it, it will only come forward when there's a search for it, when there's a suckling for it, when there's a need for it, when there's a thirst for it. That's when we will have the cholav of Torah. V'haya bayomahu be'ezus Hashem. So Tzadok explains that the third period, Tinoik Yoinek, Hainu Torah, as I told you the story with Rabbi Akiva, Mimasha Egel Reitzel Linoik, Sha'atayra Nimshala L'chalav. Says Rav Tzadok further. The Isha, and what about this woman? This is the only one of the three stages, which has two parts to it. It has the part of the Tinoik Yoinek, and also the Isha Misaperesim Balo. So says Rav Tzadok, what's that Isha? Isha hi hamenekes. The Isha is the one who's giving forth the nourishment. B'hainu Gedolei Yisrael. It refers to Gedolei Yisrael. Think Navi, think Moshe Rabbeinu, think Rabbi Akiva, think the Gedolei Hadar, think Chavetz Chaim, Rabbi Chaim Oizer. They're giving over this chalav. They're the nursing mothers. B'tinoikes shel beis Rabbon, shel beis Rabbon, Mikablan Mehem are receiving it from them. That's us. So the flow of Torah, that's the third period. V'heim, says Reb Tzadok, Torah v'avoda ugmilas chasadim. We know the world stands on three pillars. The pillar of Torah, avoda means davening, or korbanos, ugmilas chasadim, and chesed. And if we were going to make a chart, says Tzidkas Hatzadik Shehem, that's a three, Torah, Avodah, Gemilas, Chasadim. That's Neged, Machshava, Dibor, Umaisa, which is the Maisa. Gemilas Chasadim is the Maisa. Let's go backwards. Avodah is Tefillah, that's the Dibor. And Machshava is Torah. K'maisha Kasafti. Okay, now we have a question. Why is it going backwards? If we're going in order that, if he's right, and we're going in the order of the tkufos of Golus and the tkufos of the timeline of history, so then the order should be Chamor Noyer is Gemilas Chasadim, and Tefillah is Tefillah, Avodah, and Torah is now. So why is it Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim? So says Reb Tzadok, he answers this question. He says, Rak Sheba, because we're talking about Laila. And be'es hachoshech hem hafuchim. Because when it comes to this dark time, everything is upside down and backwards. Okay. Let's first understand the picture that he's setting here for us. So the picture is that you have Isha Misaperesim Bala, the Gedolei Yisrael, receiving their inspiration from the Shechina and the generations before them. That's the Isha Misaper. That's the Bala. Isha Misaperes im Bala. all the way up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now she, which is our Gedolei Yisrael, is giving this over to the Tinoik. So what we have here is when the Tinoik is taking this, it's Torah, Avodah, Ugmilas Chasadim, goes all the way back. I want to explain for a moment, what does it mean? I'll give you a mashal. I don't know if this is a mashal, this is really the thing. But it's what I call, it's already science. It used to be alternative, and now it's already considered science. But there's this idea of like psychologically reverse engineering. I'm saying it as a mashal. So it means, as everybody's familiar, probably better than me, that let's say I'm really nervous and uptight and in a nasty mood, or I feel threatened by something. So we know that affects our breathing. We go into this kind of survivor mode where we're just trying to gasp breaths wherever we go. The brain is telling us, just breathe, breathe. That's what we're doing. When we're relaxed, we're breathing nicely, we're breathing deeply, we're breathing properly. So here's the science which I call reverse engineering. So, change your breathing into relaxed mode, and that'll trick your brain into feeling that it is relaxed, even though your brain's all nervous. So by starting from the bottom, if you will, we can pull up to our mind. I want to tell you how far this goes, that I believe personally that if somebody is not in a happy place, the right thing to do is to smile. Because when you smile, when you force yourself to smile, the brain is pretty gullible. So when you're smiling, you're telling your brain, oh, I'm happy. And when you're happy, when your brain telling you you're happy, all of a sudden you're happy. So sometimes you can start from the outside and put it on the inside. This is not any chiddush to anybody who's learned in a yeshiva, because Kehillas Shivtei is full of this. I'll just read you in Parak Zayin of the Kehillas Shivtei. He talks about zrizas, how if you're in a tired and a lazy mood, the thing to do is to just get yourself moving. Don't worry about why you're lazy or why you're sedentary or why you're not moving. Just get yourself moving. And he says, his lashon of the Kehillas Shivtei, Eitza Tova Hilai, sheyizdares birtzaynai kedei sheyimshach mizeh shetoilad by hachemda beteva. We'll get all excited from. In other words, we're starting with this, not hypocrisy. We're starting sort of artificially from the outside and pulling it up. Ki atznua hachitzayna moireres hapnimis. That's the lashon. Because the outside movements is that which inspires the inside movements to happen. Listen to what we're talking about over here. Here we're talking about, Reb Tzadok is talking about the tinoik yonek, that it's the tinoik, this is the backwards part. It's the tinoik needing food, which is inspiring the mother to give it. The mother being the Torah that we're asking for is the Torah that the Gedolei Yisrael will give it. You see, I always say, every Kehillah gets the rabbi they deserve. If you want your Rav, your Rebbe, to be a Gadol b'Torah, if you want him to teach you godless, then you have to yearn for godless. And then the Yanika begins. If you want some kind of a servant or a shamash or something, and that's what he'll be. So it's the chitzonius, which is ma'orer in a very, very deep way, this unbelievable pnimius. And this is where Rav Tzadok says, Ki b'choshech, everything is hafuchim, everything goes the other way around, which I believe means that your tznua hachitzonius, that your outside movements, this is us, the Tinoikus Shel Beis Rabban, reaching up to a generation before us and saying, teach us, give us the secrets. And then those secrets are received by the Gedolei Yisrael. It's Isha Misaperes Imbala. She gets this inspiration, Mibala. And that's what the Gemara is speaking about. As I've explained many times. This is an introduction to a term that we always use, of Isarusa de Lasata. I don't want to get into that right now because that's Chaf Aleph. But I do want to say this, that in other words, if we had to mark the kind of like era that we're in and the generation that we're in a generation of searching. Tinoik Yoinek, we being the Tinoik, Yoinek being the Torah, from the Isha that we want to learn from. And the more that we demand it, the more that we have it. And this is the way Torah is going to come into the world at this time. This is the way the Gemara describes Lifnos Boker, the period right before the dawn, right before the Gula, the period of searching, of wanting. The whole world is looking and the whole world is searching. We're looking for peace. We're looking for happiness. We're looking for wisdom. How do you get it? By begging for it from those that have it, and creating Isha Misaparasing Bala, and with that we could be Zocha to the Gula Shlema. A good day and a good Shabbos and a good Chodesh to everybody.